This is the Hagmann Hagmann Report for today. It is Thursday, July 2nd, 2015. We're coming to you live from the studios of Hagmann Hagmann Report here in beautiful northwest Pennsylvania. I'm Doug Hagmann at the helm with fellow investigator, researcher, and most importantly, my son, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann Hagmann Report, and we like to call America's premier father-son investigative reporting team. Now, folks, it's our job to bring you the news that propels the headlines, and that's exactly what we intend to do tonight. We do the headline and news triage so you don't have to. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to us. Thank you so much for deliberately listening to our program, for spending the 3 hours, investing the 3 hours with us. And if you listen to last night's program, I know you had to be blessed by last night's program with Pastor David Langford and Steve Quayle. It was just a fantastic program, in my view. And tonight, I'm sure we're going to have another fantastic program with our guest coming up, Daniel Holdings, author, researcher, and speaker, author of As Darkness Falls. But folks, for the new listeners, just want to remind you, 8 to 11 Eastern, Monday through Friday. That's when we broadcast. You can access us live as well as past shows. Of course, social networking sites. And most importantly, our original investigative reports off of our website, and that's hagmannandhagmann.com, 2 N's on Hagmann. Spell out the word and there you have it, hagmannandhagmann.com. Joe, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, it's been an interesting day.
To say the least.
Great to be here. We have tonight author Daniel Holdings with us.
And Joe and Daniel, before we bring you on, if you can indulge us for a few moments here, I need to take care of a few housekeeping items. Where to start? All right, a couple of things. Of course, folks, just an announcement. We're unable to attend the Washington, D.C.
To Celebrate D.C.
This
6.
Right. We were scheduled to speak on the 6th, and we're not going to be able to do that. That's number one. Number two, this bothers me a lot. And Joe, you and I were talking about this before the show, and to speak to the audience about this. Folks, prepare for persecution, okay? And I'm being very serious about this. We are entering into a period of time, I believe, like no other. And, we knew this time was coming. We knew this time was going to arrive, and I think we've arrived. And I think we're seeing the incremental persecution, the incremental reformatting of the alternative media. Now, one thing we're going to be doing here this weekend, one thing we have done is, I'll just call him JD, he's putting together our official YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a lot with that. I'm so excited about that. Joe and I are both excited about that. We're going to be telling you more about that tomorrow. Going to be posting, check the website tomorrow, and you'll see what we're putting together, okay? But the reason I brought that up is, of course, Ted Broer. He's a regular guest on our show, healthmasters.com.
Yeah, I have the email. I mean, you can get into. I'll read what he sent out to his followers. And he writes this. He says, "Where's my show, my dear friends? Last week I started my own show. Many of you have asked me to do a show. Some of you warned me against doing my own show, that if I did, to water it down, and that's not my style. Well, after 4 podcasts, 2 solo, 1 with Hodges and the other with Hagmann, the shows were abruptly taken off the air by the satellite carrier. Myself and several of my friends have come under personal attack over this issue. No reason was given. It is possibly something I said, but the truth must be told regardless of the blowback. However, this minor setback has only furthered my resolve to continue with the show, so please pray for me and my family and Health Masters. I am moving as quickly as possible. If need be, I will do my show on YouTube. So again, please keep me in your prayers. Jesus is Lord. Sincerely, Ted Broer."
There it is. And I have I have a feeling that we are going to see more and more and more and more of this take place to the very people who are spreading the information in the alternative media that is the most essential.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. You said something last night during a commercial break, I'm not sure when you said it, but you said, I have a bad feeling about censorship. It kind of came out of left field, and I brushed it off as nothing. But today, I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't know about this until earlier today. So
yeah, it was interesting. But
yeah,
we'll keep Ted in our prayers, and I know he'll be back on his feet with the show. Just keep all the people anybody in the alternative media who's trying to make a difference in your prayers. And we know from experience that when things happen like this, it might be because the Lord wants Ted somewhere else, on another network or on a different network. So,
and we have we're targeted. We are targets right now, and we have been targets before, but this is an entirely new level of targeting. And I just want to let you know that we are making different arrangements in the event that something happens to our show. Certainly, we will not be down for long, if at all. And I can't reveal the plans, obviously, because that would be counterproductive. But by the way, some good news. Let me tell you this. Tonight's broadcast is sponsored by Nature Box. You know Nature Box. We love Nature Box. They ship great tasting, guilt-free snacks made with integrity, right to your door. They've got over 100 flavors to choose from, and this is going to revolutionize the way you snack. Things like mini Belgian waffles, snacks like sweet and salty nut medley. They even got a probiotic snack mix. Oh, is it so good. Folks, that's naturebox.com. Try NatureBox for free. Go to naturebox.com/CFPradio, or go to Hagmann Hagmann. Scroll all the way down, the bottom left there. Click on the icon for NatureBox. That takes you to our little world at NatureBox. There you can get your free snacks. naturebox.com/CFPradio. So happy to have them as a sponsor of the program. Now,
with us now.
More later, folks. Just stay tuned. But go ahead.
We have Daniel Holdings, the author, speaker, and radio show host. His website is danielholdings.com. He's a frequent guest of on our program, and is the author of several books that me and my father have both read and appreciate. Daniel, welcome back to the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Phyllis, thank you so much for having me on, and audience, thank you for listening tonight. Guys, I'm listening to your intro, and I hear the weight of the world on your shoulders, and certainly these are serious times, and times that give all of us pause. But one of my goals tonight, guys, is we talk about those very real things in the news, some of those things that were written in my books, that are in fact we are facing today and in the very near future. Guys, there's hope, there's peace, and there's God's presence, even in the midst of that persecution that you were talking about, Doug. But thank you so much for having me on.
Well, it's great to have you back on. And, folks,
go ahead. Some of Daniel's books, 3 Days in the Belly of the Beast, As the Darkness Falls.
Let me tell you, that's my favorite, but they're all good. They're all good.
I have to read that, Between the Veil. But As the Darkness Falls, I think was the first book I read of yours, Daniel, and I would recommend everybody who gets a chance to get their hands on that to read that. If you can, Daniel, can you give us a breakdown of your writings, what led you to get into writing in the way, in the style that you write, and what we've seen since you've written your books that stands out today in the news?
Well, thank you, Joe. I'm 52 years old. I'm not a kid. A veteran in the military for 10 years. College graduate, and was a businessman for a long time in the financial arena. And I, like a lot of guys, I had thought about writing a book and even started one or two how-to books, that kind of thing, but never got very far on them. And long story short, a lot of things happened in my life. My paradigm shifted, and I began to see things differently. And the Lord put that first book on my heart, 3 Days in the Belly of the Beast. And when I tell you that I was a business guy and a financial guy, and I do have an education, but I'm not a physicist. Well, that first book was about the Large Hadron Collider, yes, the very same, and CERN on the border of France and Switzerland. And back when I wrote that book, I think I wrote that book back in 2009, came out in 2010, I said something in that book that they would discover the Higgs boson, or the God particle. And it wasn't very much longer, probably about a year later, they actually discovered the God particle. Then somebody got a hold of that book, and they thought it was very intriguing, and they ran it in the ancient Torah code, along with my name and some of the storylines. And lo and behold, they found my name, the name of that book, some of the storylines, all in the ancient Torah code. So when that happened, Joe, I was faced with a dilemma, because I just had a story, a burning story that I had to get out on paper. So that's why I penned it. And there were things in there that I could not know. There were things in there that were mind-boggling that I now understood. There's talk in that book about dimensional physics, because the main character in that book is trying to bridge. Now, audience, if this sounds familiar, it should, because it has been stated in recent articles that have come and interviews that have come out of CERN that this is what they're trying to do, or one of the things that they're trying to do with the Large Hadron Collider. But way back then, I wrote that the main character was trying to use the Large Hadron Collider as a means to bridge the gap between dimensions so that he could look in to the other dimensions. And lo and behold, that's what we are being told now. But that is exactly what they were trying to do. And I had no clue. Yes, I did my research on the machine. By the way, audience, it's the world's biggest machine. It is massive, and it's 600 feet underground. Well, at least much of it is underground. But the point is, that there are things in that book that I could not know, and many more things that are coming true that I simply could not know. It was the Ruach Kodesh. It was the Holy Spirit that gave me those things. And I tell you this not in a means of bragging, because I'm just a donkey. You guys know this. I always say that I'm just a donkey. Your show is a platform for the watchmen, where the watchmen are unleashed, and that's wonderful. And I don't dare call myself a watchman. I'm humbled to come on your show after Steve and Steve Quayle and David Langford yesterday. Two men that I greatly respect. Those guys are watchmen. I'm just a donkey. All I want to be is Balaam's donkey. So this is why the Lord gave me these books, to shout a warning, because that is exactly what Balaam's donkey did. He warned people. He warned Balaam about what was coming. An angel was going to whack him, and he told him, if you don't stop and do what God told you to, you're going to get whacked. And so that's all I am. I'm just a donkey. The second book, As the Darkness Falls, I wrote that book in 2011, came out in 2012, and in that book, perhaps one of the stunning things that is even stunning to me, and I wrote it. I wrote about a terrorist organization that rose up out of Syria. They were Islamic. They were bent on world domination, and they declared a caliphate. And the initials of that organization was, in the book, the ISNW. Now,
wow.
Today, in 2014, of course, we have ISIS that came about in 2014, who rose up out of Syria and Iraq. Later, the Caliph is bent on world domination. I had no idea. And nobody had an idea about ISIS back then. And then, of course, my latest book that came out last year is Between the Veil. And I had such an urgency, and you had me on just shortly after it came out. I had such an urgency to get out that book, and I didn't know why. But there were things that were happening in the world that the Holy Spirit said, you've got to get this book out. If you don't get this book out, I'll find somebody who will. And when God tells you stuff like that, you take a step back and you say, yes, sir, I will do what you told me to. So that's why I rushed and got the book out when I did. And lo and behold, one of the storylines in that book is that the Pope, of all people, who was a Jesuit, becomes, or he helps form an interplanetary organization and becomes the spokesman for it. And guys, just, 2 weeks ago, there was an article that came out that Pope Francis did, in fact, suggest an interplanetary organization on climate change, and he was willing to be the spokesman for it. So, anyway,
wow.
Joe, those are the books, and it is one of those reasons why I needed to come on, because many of the things that I wrote in those books, particularly that book, As the Darkness Falls, that you referenced, Doug, that they're coming true. And it's not because I'm so smart, I'm not a clairvoyant, I'm not a psychic, I'm not any of those things. It's the Holy Spirit, folks, and the Holy Spirit is warning us that time is almost up.
Daniel, I'm not going to give away the plot of your book. I know your books, in particular, As the Darkness Falls, which I found very compelling. But looking at the terrain of today's events, where we're at, and by the way, I personally have a very extreme, deep concern for this weekend, in particular July 4th, events taking place here in this country. I don't know. I don't have any exclusive information. I don't know what they are or what they would be, but I do suspect that. Well, let me just put it this way: if we get to Sunday or Monday without any type of major event, I will be surprised and relieved.
And the New York Times is now saying the potential holiday threat assessed with focus is on lone wolf terrorists. Just as an update on that. But
my question to you is, given your research that you did for your books, given what you wrote about in your books, without, I'm not going to, like I said, people can really, I would recommend people, As the Darkness Falls, well, all your books, but that one in particular, because it's so, really so relevant. Where do you see us going right now? We know we're headed off a cliff. We're already off the cliff. We're on the way down, but where do you see the next? What do you see happening next, if I can phrase it that way?
Guys, the word says, and I know that your listeners are astute, they're educated, they know about the things that we talk about on a regular basis. So I'm just going to assume that you understand that we're talking about the same thing. There may be others that are less spiritual, less religious, if we can put it that way. They're believers, but they're not deep into the Word, not deep into a relationship. And it's you that I want to talk to at the moment, because we're going to talk about what Doug just asked me. The Word says that every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Yeshua HaMashiach, that Jesus Christ is Lord. Now, why am I talking about this on a show like this when we're talking about the things in the news? Because, folks, you have to understand something. That whether you want to bow or not, you will bow. We will bow. Whether we do so out of love and adoration or whether we do so out of fear, but we will bow. And as a means of answering your question, Doug, where do I see things going from here? The Word says that God uses kings leaders to do his will, even if those kings and leaders are evil. He allowed the Chaldeans to come in and invade Israel. He allowed the Babylonians to take Israel away. He allowed Rome to oppress Israel. He uses bad people to do his will. Now, that doesn't sit right with a lot of mainstream church people, because wait a minute, God is love, and he wouldn't hurt me. He's not mad at me. God is love. That is indeed one of his attributes. But he is also righteous, and he is holy. And he requires that we willingly obey him and follow him. And if we will not, then he will show us exactly who he is. And he is just. And we will all have to bow. Now, I say that, Doug, because where I see it going from here is the Lord of the universe, the God of the universe, the creator of the universe, is about to use some very bad people to get our attention. That's where we are going from here. And I didn't have the opportunity to listen to Steve Quayle and David Langford last night, but I suspect, knowing the Holy Spirit, that we may well be talking about the same things. Because, folks, you need to understand something. When we talk, even in our own country, about Jade Helm, the powers that be, and the things that are being enforced on the American people, who God has blessed so immensely, more than any country, I dare say, on the face of the earth, our country has been blessed. And when we, as a people, and folks, whether you like it or not, you may be a Christian, and you may say, look, I don't agree with the Supreme Court's decision. And then, folks, I don't either. And neither does the Hagmanns. But this is our country. And the fact that this happened, Doug, this is our fault. This is our fault.
I agree.
Because we are called to be salt and light. We elect the leaders that appointed the judges that made that decision. We somehow have gotten so complacent, so soft, so careless with the good things that our country has brought us that we thought it could run itself. And when good men do nothing, evil will abound. And that is exactly what has happened in the highest offices of the land. And so we have a decision like we've had a couple decisions, just mind-blowing decisions that I although, Joe, you and I talked on the phone, you said, I expected it. I expected it too, but I did not expect the whole of the United States practically to embrace the decision. The church to embrace the decision. I didn't expect that. And so, in answer to your question, Doug, where were you going from here? One simple word: judgment. We are going to see judgment.
Yeah. I believe you are correct. I believe
that seems to be the consensus.
Absolutely.
Among not only guests, but a lot of people feel. And we talked before the show, and a lot of people have reached out to us, and a lot of people, including ourselves, at times feel the heaviness of what's going on in the spiritual world. You feel that just something is wrong. Something is terribly wrong. And I know a lot of people feel that. And my question is, we are in this country, as you said, Daniel, one of the most blessed nations ever, the most wealthy nation, and in so many ways, and that has all turned around. And we talk about the judgment coming. I wonder, we see that slowly the pride of this nation, rightfully so, is being taken away. And will this judgment be come quick, or will it continue to trickle upon us and bring us down that way? That's one thing that's been running through my mind. But certainly, I don't imagine that. I can't see this nation continuing to be blessed. I see Christians in their daily walk, and whether new believers or lifetime believers, continuing to have breakthroughs with the Lord. But beyond that, I don't see how this nation can continue to be even propped up after this for too much longer.
Well, Doug, Joe, it's a good point, because will judgment come quickly, or will it come like Chinese water torture, drip, 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 drip? And I think what we have been seeing, although I see this is the thing, and we use this phrase all the time, that people are asleep, you've heard me say, I just woke up a few years ago, right? Woke up to some of the crazy things that I've now come to believe that I've written about, and so on and so forth. But I think that judgment has been coming drip, drip, drip. And all along, the Father would say, wait a minute, I want to get your attention. Pay attention. Come back to me. Come back to me. I remember I was a believer, and at this time, I was in business, things going well. Things going well. I was doing well. I'm a leader in church. I've been married to my wife. Probably at that time, we've been married now over 30 some odd years, but at that time, probably 20 years or so. And so this must have been about 10 years ago. And I remember in my spirit, I kept hearing, "Come out of her, come out of her, come out of her." And I'm like, Lord, what do you mean, come out of her? What does that mean? And I looked it up in the Word, but I didn't really get an answer. Come out of her. Now, for those of you that think I'm talking about leaving the country, that is not what I'm talking about. See, it's a separate issue. And I know there are people that you've had on that feel very strongly that you need to leave. If the judgment is about to fall and you need to leave, that's what some people are saying. But I dare say, just as an aside, let me come back to this point, because it's an important point. If God can hide the 3 Hebrews in the furnace, He can hide you in the middle of American Babylon.
Amen.
If God could hide Daniel in the lion's den, He could hide Daniel in the middle of the United States during judgment. If God could protect those people all throughout the world that were in dire circumstances because of, and we see example after example, when the enemy was coming after him, David said, Lord, hide me in your tabernacle. Hide me in your presence. And they did. We've heard, Henry Gruber has had a vision that said that he saw people lying on their faces as this invasion force would come, and they were coming in a huge line, just shooting people and killing people, and there were believers lying on their faces, praying before the Lord. And the ranks broke. They broke in half, and they went around them. And then the line of the soldiers came back after they passed the people, and they didn't even know they broke ranks. They didn't even see the people that were there, praying, asking the Lord's protection. So if God could hide all of those people, He can hide us. And I dare say that if you are so frightened, and we're going to talk about fear right now, or this evening I should say, because fear is not a function of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is a function of the Lord, but that's a different thing. Fear, just for the sake of fear, is not godly. It's not God. And we're not called to walk in fear. In fact, the Bible talks about us not walking in fear. But the point is that if you run out of fear out of the United States because you're afraid, so you look for someplace safe, Ecuador or South America or wherever you think is going to be safe. If you are running without the Lord, there's no safety there, not for you. There's only safety in the presence of the Lord. There's only safety under His wing. So, folks, let's be straight, okay? And I know that some of the people that I respect will disagree with me, and I mean no disrespect to them for disagreeing, but I will tell you this, that you are safe where God has you. So this is the point of the show tonight, that you need to hear God's voice. You need to know his voice. Yeshua said, my sheep know my voice, and another they will not follow. So whose voice are you listening to? Are you listening to your own voice? Are you listening to your own fear? Or are you listening to the Lord? See, this is the point.
Exactly. And Daniel, if I may interject something in here, because I think this is so critically important. I know that we've got many people out there who are alone, and I know that not only are they alone, they're elderly, they're older, they're not as spry as they used to be. Lord, I know that feeling. Many don't have the financial wherewithal to move across the state, let alone to across the globe. And when there are people, and I don't care if it's on our show or whatever show, who say, well, I don't care, we're supposed to go and I'm going to obey and I'm going to South America or Australia or, Antarctica or whatever. I'm speaking to the people who are alone, infirmed, or feel alone. Do not fear. Don't be afraid. Because, Daniel, you just said it, fear is not of God. The fear of God is mandatory. I mean, I fear God. But, I just want to let the people know, reassure those people out there who feel alone. Even if you got 20 members of your family living with you and you're crawling over people to get to the kitchen sink, and you feel alone, you're not alone. You're never alone as long as you're plugged in to the Word of God. And fear is not a spirit that we promote, but a healthy fear. Awareness, we promote awareness, but not fear. We promote information and education, but not fear. It's two different things. But sir, go ahead. I just wanted to say that to the audience.
No, I think it's a valid point, a good point, and one that needs to be made. There's a difference between caution and look, folks. You did not hear Doug Hagmann say, "Do not prepare." That's not what you heard him say. That's not what you heard him say. There is prudence in preparing for all kinds of events, and it would behoove us to prepare for some of those things that are coming upon the earth, because rest assured they will be here before you know it. So you need to have the means to be sustained at least for a while. You need food, you need the means to buy and sell, you need water, you need a safe place, and that's not what I'm talking about. We're not talking about don't take prudent action, okay? We're talking about fearing over the actions that you are or not taking. And that is a whole different story. Because trust me, folks, when I tell you this, if you're fearful now, there's going to be enough fear to go around. Believe me, in the very near future. So, okay. Let's. I have to be candid now. I'm going to be candid if I can with your audience, and I don't do this because if I do this, that people may take it wrong. So let me do this little house cleaning. In the past, right, these books that I have, audience, you need to buy them. They cost me money, so I can't give them to you. So you have to buy them. In the past, I've offered specials for the Doug and Joe Hagmann listeners. If you go to my website, I've said you get a discount. If you, folks, time is very short. You need to get those books. If you buy those books as a result of listening to this show, and Joe, we were talking, I think a good title for this show is Rushing Toward Midnight. Rushing Toward Midnight. So, audience, if you reference the Doug and Joe Hagmann show on the Hagmann Hagmann Report, Rushing Toward Midnight, and you say you heard me there, I will give you an additional 15% off of my books if you buy the package. The package on my website, danielholdings.com, is currently 5% off. So another 15% off, that'll make it 20% off. I don't sell them like that. I can't sell them like that, but I will sell them for you because time is very short and you need to get those books. However, you have to buy them on my website because I only have control over my website. I don't have control over Amazon or any bookstores or that kind of thing. I take PayPal, so you can use a credit card there. In the instructions on PayPal, just say you heard me. I'm rushing toward midnight on the Hagmann Show, and you'll get the discount. I'll make it I'll refund the additional 15% right then and there when I process the order, when my people process the order. Now, with that out of the way, what I was going to say is that we are coming into a time where nothing is going to make sense. It already doesn't make sense, guys. Justice Scalia stood up and he said, what they just did with the Supreme Court ruling this is one judge, the Chief Justice, says that the Supreme Court is now a danger to democracy. Now, how much sense does that make? I mean, he's right. He's absolutely right because they're legislating from the bench, right? So he's absolutely right. But the point is that we are coming into a time when things will not make sense. And if you look at them logically, you're going to scratch your head and you're not going to know what to do. And that lack of information or that lack of understanding will cause fear to rise up in your heart. And fear is not something we should be walking in. The Word says that we can have peace that surpasses all understanding. And that is where we need to get to tonight. We need to get to that peace. Because it's not about the things that we are looking at. And guys, this is what I really want to talk about tonight. It's not about the physical things that we are looking at. Now, what do you mean, Daniel? You're one of those crazy, super religious, spiritual guys, and you're talking about religious stuff, right? Well, almost. I'm talking about the supernatural. But I'm talking about the supernatural in a way that you might not have ever thought about this before. Why? Have you heard me on here before? You might have. Okay, you don't believe me. We have heard, and I'm not going to go through all the other things that I've talked about, guys. We talked about physics, and since I've been on, we talked about dimensions and all that other stuff. But I dare say this, that when we talk about angels and demons and forces of wickedness in heavenly places, as Ephesians 6 says, that is talking about other dimensions that we cannot see. But the scary thing is, those dimensions are right next to us. We are ruled, audience, by our physical laws, the laws of physics. The laws of physics are this: whatever goes up must come down, right? That the second law of thermodynamics, that energy is just simply, it's not created. There's no new energy created, and it's not destroyed. It's just redirected. Okay? These are laws of physics. Well, these laws are, if I can say it this way, are walls for us or barriers for us that we in our finite minds cannot see around. Now ask yourself this. I always find this interesting. When Yeshua, he was with his disciples, except for some unique situations, if I can say it that way, he didn't break the laws of physics. When he walked on water, that was breaking the laws of physics. But he didn't do that all the time, because you don't see that in the Word. However, I find it interesting that when he was crucified and resurrected, when he saw his disciples, he says, "Don't touch me." When he saw Mary, he said, "Don't touch me. I haven't ascended to the Father yet." Because he had to go present himself as a wave offering. First fruits. He had to present himself to the Father as a wave offering. Now, in doing that, he comes back and he appears in the upper room and all of his disciples around him. And Thomas was just shooting off his mouth there. And he said, "I don't believe him unless I put my finger in his side or his hand." And Jesus appears to him. And then Jesus says, "Go ahead, touch me. Touch me." Right? So and Thomas says, "Touch it." They touch him. I'm sure they embraced him. And now he's physically there. But it also says that he walked through walls, breaking our physical laws, and he floated, right? He broke our laws. He broke our physical laws. Now, that always, that boggles my mind. But those physical laws are those very same things that bind us to not see the supernatural that lays right beside us. These dimensions, if you will, that lay right beside us. And, my books talk about some of that stuff. But that's one of the things that the Lord showed me when I wrote this first book is that, it says in Hebrews, right, that one of my favorite chapters, one of my favorite verses says, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, right? I started doing a study on this. And if you understand, audience, that heaven is not somewhere in the by and by. If you look up the word, it's not in the by and by. It's not. There are three different words for heaven. One of them is the expanse of the sky. There's another word for heaven that is like the area around us, the air around us, right? Now, this word for heaven that is used in this part of Hebrews is that word. So when you hear that verse, it says, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, it says, run the race, and it goes on. But what it's saying is that there are people all around us. There are witnesses all around us. Who are they? Well, some of them were they call it the star list of the Bible, all the people that did the things that they did without seeing, the Messiah when he came, that had already died, but they believed. It was talking about the hall of fame of faith, right? But the point is that they're all around us. These things, these beings, are all around us. Okay, now I sound crazy. Well, look, I didn't say that they were UFOs. I didn't say that they were ET. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is when Ephesians 6 says that we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with the powers and principalities and the forces of wickedness in heavenly places, that's what it's talking about. This battle that is raging and that is all of a sudden, it's just like somebody threw gasoline on the fire. It's just exploded into violence in the heavenlies. It is all around us. And unless you understand that, audience, you will not understand. I told you when I first started this comment that we are coming into a time when nothing will make sense. And unless you understand that the battle is raging in the supernatural all around us, then you will not understand what is going on in our physical realm. Because those heavenly realms, that supernatural realms, or these other dimensions, if you will, that the geniuses at CERN want to look into, are right next to us, and that battle is right here. It is right here, and unless you understand that, you will not understand why the world is going crazy right now.
Very well said. We see, we know that there are the carnal nature, the physical nature versus the spiritual nature, and these are two forces that have been at work since the beginning, since the fall of man. And as time continues to go on, I believe as things continue to move in the spiritual world, those that are unsaved, that don't know the Lord, it increases the level of insanity in the physical world.
Well, go. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, what Daniel mentioned about the war in the heavenlies, as described in the Bible, and essentially the interdimensionality of the war that's being waged or that's being fought, that's trickling down to earth. We need to understand. To a certain extent, we need to understand at least the basic concept of that, and because that does affect the earthly realm. And I believe that our ancestors understood that very clearly because they were closer to the word of the Lord in the Bible. Okay, but since the Bible has been the word has been diluted and it's not been taught, we've lost that understanding and comprehension of the depth of what's around us. Daniel, that's what you're talking about, right? I mean, maybe I wasn't as articulate as I should be or should have been, but I mean,
no, man, I think that's an accurate statement. We don't understand. And look, okay, I'm gonna get some people mad, but right now, before I get you all mad, okay, you need to hear what I'm saying. Right now, I felt the Lord impress this on me before I got on the air with you. I started reading John 17, right? And John 17 is the high priestly prayer that Yeshua said, that Jesus said. He said, Father, make them as one as we are one. Okay? Guys, you have to love me. Folks, you have to love me. All right? I'm not saying anything that's not in the Word, although I'm saying some things that maybe explain the Word a little differently than what you do not understand, but you have to love me. Okay? And I want you to understand the heart by which I'm giving these truths to you, because I'm trying to help you to see what is going on all around us. Okay? So if you want to tilt, right, if you feel like one of those old pinball machines and you feel like you're going to tilt, don't tilt yet. Hang on, okay, because we're going somewhere. I think you're absolutely right, Doug. The further that we get away from the Garden of Eden, right, because that is where man, I believe that in the garden we had 100% capacity of our brain, because that's how God created us. He created us to think, right? And I believe that there were supernatural things that we did, and they weren't called supernatural because we didn't have the natural laws that we have now, that those natural laws only came about as the result of the fall of man. As the sin of man broke God's law, therefore God instituted natural laws, not because he was being mean to us, but because we would hurt ourselves. And if you don't believe that, then take a look at society today, a society that is bent upon hurting themselves. But I digress. The point is this, that the further, and answer your question, Doug, that we get from the Garden of Eden, the fall, the less we understand the Word and what Yahweh was trying to do. Now, here's the point, that the Word says, and you said something very interesting, Joe. You said something about as time has went on. It made me think of the verse out of the Word that says, well, Yeshua said, if I didn't cut the days short, if God didn't cut the days short, there would be no flesh left alive. That's what he said. Now, how can that be? I mean, he's God, right? Why can't he protect us? Because we would be so bent on destruction that even he couldn't protect us, because we have free will. He's going to give us free will. We're going to destroy ourselves. So that's why he's going to cut the day short. And it is interesting, I think, and I've talked to quite a few people, and they all think the same thing. You guys tell me what you think. Is it just me, or is it almost like time is speeding up? I mean, I cannot believe how quickly time is going. Do you guys feel that same way?
You better believe it. I was telling my wife earlier today, it seems exactly that. I mean, I don't think I have to expand on that. What used to feel like, and look, I understand. The older you get, it seems like time is shortened. However, this is something supernatural. This is not something that comes with age necessarily. This is something that if you look at, anyone listening to this broadcast knows what we're talking about. I mean, you'd have to be, half comatose and not to experience or not to feel that, in my view.
Well, Doug, you and I are probably close to the same age, but your son is a different story. Joe, do you feel that way, honestly, or am I just an old guy?
No, I mean, time, in my opinion, in my perspective, has definitely been speeding up, and it's, I don't know, I don't want to say since we started the show, but since 2011, I guess since, I've got back into the Bible and got back into the Lord, and then with all these things going on, yeah, that time does seem to be just flying by. It seems like less can be done in a day. It seems like, we did an example, when things come up where we have to travel out of town for whatever reason, no matter how many months in advance you plan those things, that time just seems to just disappear. And I don't know if it's, looking back, seeing all, how filled with news events, with personal issues.
I don't think it has anything to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm 32 years old, and for the last 5 years, it seems like, we've been in a wind tunnel.
There you go.
It does feel like that. The skin on my face is being pulled back, that's for sure. They call that wrinkles, but I'm not going to own up to it. Anyway, just as an example, that verse, that if he didn't cut the day short, so there would be no flesh left alive. Let's examine that for a minute, and let's use some of the storylines out of my book, since I know those things because I've researched them. Let's talk about transhumanism. The idea that mankind now has the ability to change your DNA. Now, folks, our DNA was created by the Father. He did it a specific way for a reason, and now scientists have the ability to change our DNA, to make mankind Homo sapien 2.0 in his own image instead of God's image. That's the first thing. Now, along with that, we have the augmentation of another storyline in my books, the augmentation of mankind with technology, robotics, cyborgism, all that stuff. Those are all real things, not out of science fiction movies necessarily, but out of science labs in the real world. And it is happening now, all part of transhumanism, making man in their own image. Now, of course, we have artificial intelligence, which is part of singularity. When singularity happens, and it could well happen in our own lifetimes within the next, I'm being redundant, it could very well happen within the next decade. Singularity is where artificial intelligence surpasses mankind's intelligence, and there have been many people, including, the preeminent Stephen Hawking, that said, if that happens, then man is toast, right? They'll kill us off. That's not me. That's Stephen Hawking. Now, okay, so that's just transhumanism. That's singularity and genetics, as well as robotics. That's all that stuff.
Yeah,
all
artificial intelligence. And you're right. Stephen Hawking's, Bill Gates, and there was a list of these, people who are the creators of these things, or the money behind these things, who have all warned that this will lead to the destruction of humanity. But go on.
All right. So, because remember, we're talking about the verse where it says that if God didn't shorten the days, that there would be no flesh left alive. So that's one hazard we're looking at. Now, we're going to get into this, I hope, in a little while, but we're going to talk about nuclear war, right? I don't have to tell you the threat that nuclear war has to mankind. There is a threat of nuclear war, as you all know, an imminent threat of nuclear war that will kill millions of people. But imagine a world that is totally polluted. Imagine 1,000 Fukushimas, right? Man can't live in that environment. Perhaps that's why all the elites are going underground, but man can't live in that environment. So there's a real imminent hazard there. Remember, audience, we're talking about why God would speed up the days, right? Why is he speeding up time? There's an imminent danger from transhumanism and all that other crazy stuff. There's an imminent danger from nuclear war or even nuclear pollution, i.e. Fukushima, killing off the Pacific. That aside for just a second. Another storyline out of my books, and you guys know this, the increase in geological hazards, earthquakes and volcanoes. You know, the funny thing is, Doug, when I wrote As the Darkness Falls, I wrote in there, eventually there's like 84, 85 volcanoes that go off, and I end up losing count, but as I was writing about these things. But the reason I picked that number is because at that time there was only like 20-some-odd volcanoes going off. Folks, just a couple of weeks ago there was some crazy number of volcanoes that have started to go off in the world, like 48 or 49 or something, half that number that I came up with. That is unbelievable. I mean, it's crazy. It's unbelievable. And then when you add to that the increase of not just earthquakes, but the increase in significant earthquakes, when the Word says that in last days that the earth would groan as in labor, right? That it would groan. We're seeing that now. That it would stumble like a drunkard. We're beginning to see that now. It's amazing to me. And then, of course, okay, so that's one hazard that seems to be increasing that may well, have the Lord to increase the speed of the days that we're living in because there's a hazard. Now, all right, so and then you could throw other hazards in there like the sun. I've written about the sun. That could be a huge problem now. Okay, here's a hazard that we have to talk to. I hope we can talk a little bit more about it when as the show progresses. But there's been a report on several people's minds and hearts, and even scientists that have come out and said that we are about to get whacked with either an asteroid or a comet, or more specifically Nibiru or Planet X. So some of you have already checked out. You go, oh, this guy is crazy. Folks, read the books. In the books, it talks about the perturbation of planets, even in our own solar system, that there is no reason other than an interloping body within our own solar system. There can be no other explanation. There has to be a force that is pulling at those planets to make them perturbed like they are. Now, I say that, and it's funny, I'm reminded that I was talking to a friend of mine today, and we were talking about the magnetosphere, because as you all know, we went through, I know you, Doug and Joe know this, I don't know if you've talked about it, but just last week we went through a very severe solar storm. It knocked out communications, and it was a pretty bad one. They had auroras all the way down into, I think it was Arkansas or something like that. It was crazy, something crazy like that. And it was actually the combination of three different solar storms that the one overtook the other two, and it made like a big storm to hit us, and it interfered. So I was talking to my friend about this, and I mentioned to him, I said, do you remember a couple years ago where, and I don't know if I wrote about this in one of my books or not, but a couple of years ago, there's and if you can subscribe to him on it, great YouTube channel, very scientific type of channel. It's called Suspicious Observers, and he does all things about the sun. And he showed a video. I don't know if it's a NOAA satellite. I think it's a NOAA satellite, but it is a satellite that is pointed toward the Earth in space, and what it does is it allows us to see our magnetosphere. And our magnetosphere is that protective, that invisible protective shield around us that protects us from solar winds and radiation, all this other stuff. But it's actually on this screen. You can see it in various colors. It's blue and it's green and it's red. And when there's a solar storm coming from the sun, it'll develop like a tail. You'll see the magnetosphere bounce back and forth, wobble, and then it'll develop like a tail, like not unlike a blow dryer blowing on your hair, and your hair whips to the other side from the blow dryer. Well, okay, that's the way it normally acts when there's a solar storm or something, or a solar flare or something like that is pounding on it. All of a sudden, 2 years ago, out of the blue, the magnetosphere tail went back toward the sun in the opposite direction. It made no sense at all. and no one had a clue of why that happened. Why did that happen? Nobody knows. Nobody knows to this day why that happened. Here's the point, that I think that there may well be something in our own solar system that is even causing perturbations in our own planet's characteristics, i.e. the magnetosphere in this instance. Here's the point, that is another hazard that could well, in fact, whack mankind and kill off all life on the Earth. All right, Dan, now you're just going great. Well, okay, let's talk about something a little bit more pragmatic. What about Ebola? What about various other diseases, the bird flu, H1N1, all that other stuff? There's a great fear by the CDC that a pandemic could sweep the planet and kill off mankind. And I'm not making this up. Read in Scientific American, it'll tell you. Right.
Daniel, okay, hold that thought, because this is a good place to stop momentarily while we take the top of the hour break. Interesting pandemic.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you about that because
Bill Gates himself said, but he believes there's a 50% plus chance that some kind of pandemic will sweep the land in the next 20 years and kill off the majority of the population. But we'll be right back after a quick commercial break. Our guest tonight is author, speaker, radio show host Daniel Holdings. His website is danielholdings.com. Visit his website. Grab his book. There's a special we'll tell you about on the other side. Stay with us.
Folks, you want to snack healthy. We all snack, of course, during the course of the day. If you're at work, if you're at school, if you're running around, you don't want to grab the artificial, the snacks laden with artificial coloring and sweeteners and high fructose corn syrup. You don't want that. We have an alternative for you. You can now snack much smarter. Folks, go to naturebox.com/CFP radio, or better yet, go to hagmanandhagmann.com and click on the link to NatureBox. You have to scroll down to the bottom of our website. There you'll see the colorful link to NatureBox. Click on that. That allows you to start your free trial of NatureBox. But I'll tell you something. The snacks that they have, do you have a dietary goal or taste preference? Not a problem. They've got over 100 snacks to excite and delight every palate, and I mean every palate. They stand behind their snacks with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Their snacks are absolutely delicious. I don't know who thinks of some of the combinations, the flavor combinations. Let me tell you, they are just fabulous. Things that you know, they are revolutionizing the way we're snacking. You can choose from over 100 healthy and definitely crave-worthy options to be delivered right to your door. That's the other great thing about this. Folks, you don't have to go to the store. The snacks come directly to you. I would urge everybody to go to naturebox.com/CFP radio. Check out what's new there. Check out the fan favorite snacks. The things like the chocolate granola, the garlic plantains. Oh, you got to try them to really understand how good they are. Sweet blueberry almonds. What a great flavor combination. Pistachio power clusters, always a crowd pleaser. Listen to this. Praline pumpkin seeds. Oh, are they good? And I was never one for pumpkin seeds. I love pralines, but what a great combination. The snacks are endless. You can choose from something savory, something sweet, something spicy, something tart, non-GMO. You can choose from snacks that are less than 150 calories, that are low in fat, or snacks that are made without milk, gluten, soy, or nuts, or made without egg, depending on your dietary preference. Honey Dijon pretzels. Are you hungry yet? Big Island pineapple. Oh, and my personal favorite, chocolate banana chips. You've got to try those to really, just to understand the masterful creations at naturebox.com. So right now, if you go to naturebox.com/CFP radio, and that's the important part, /CFP radio, or go to Hagmann and click on the link to NatureBox, you can get a free trial of their favorite snacks right now. Free snacks delivered right to your door. I got to ask you, what are you waiting for? You shouldn't be waiting for anything. Go to naturebox.com/CFP radio to start your free trial. And it's great. You can put them in your backpack. It's summer now. Put them in your pocket, the bag of snacks. Take them with you to the beach. Take them poolside. Possibilities are endless. Palate pleasing. Made with integrity. Flavorful. naturebox.com/CFP radio. We're customers. We like them. And we know you will too. naturebox.com/CFP radio.
And sadly enough, I warned this was going to happen last year. I warned it was going to happen last summer when I started talking and doing those shows all over the country with this mass immigration from Mexico. And we had all of these people, the same liberals that are screaming that parents who don't vaccinate their children are screaming that the children coming from Mexico don't need to be screened medically and don't need to be vaccinated. We're going to have all these outbreaks everywhere, and exactly what I said was going to happen has happened.
Well, and where do you see it going, Ted? How do you see this playing out?
It's going to go to medical martial law. That's what's going to happen. And what they're going to do, see what they're doing here, they're beta testing this. I mean, they've only had 100 people, and they're making this big brouhaha. 100 people have measles, 150 or whatever, out of 300 million people, and they're making this giant brouhaha in the United States now over a disease that has like a 0.003 fatality rate. I mean, it's like 1 out of 10,000 kids die from it, and that's in like underdeveloped countries. I mean, it's complete nonsense. And the sad part about it is they're doing beta testing right now, and this is how they always do everything with the CIA. They always want to see how everybody's going to respond, so they can monitor the web traffic, they can monitor all of this stuff, they can say all these outlandish statements, and they can see what kind of blowback they get from the general population. And they're testing us. They're seeing if we're ready yet to start putting people in internment camps for vaccinations. Because what happens when they when they really do something, when they really roll something out like an Ebola or like the plague or something like that or smallpox, and they decide they're going to do that, and people don't want to get immunized for this or that, then they're going to have the ability to say, hey, wait a minute, we know exactly what's going to happen. We know how many media outlets we have to push this on. We know exactly what the pushback is going to be. We know the areas of the country of the pushback. We need to know where we need to really install the really strong martial law, and that's what this is all about, medical martial law, because that's going to be the easiest way to do this.
This July 2nd, 2015, today's Thursday. Our guest today is Daniel Holdings. His website is danielholdings.com. Just a couple quick housekeeping issues. Number one, we made an announcement at the beginning of the show, just to reiterate, we will not be able to be at the Celebrate America event in D.C. on this weekend or after this weekend on the 6th, as we were supposed to go. And we will not be there.
Yeah, and I just want to let everyone know, too, Rick Wiles, he was subpoenaed, grand jury subpoenaed Rick Wiles, the radio talk show host Rick Wiles, over his reporting about the homosexual agenda. This from a Canadian court. He was threatened with a lawsuit over his reporting on homosexual teachers in Canada. Folks, understand, this is, the war has already started. This is extremely serious, and we're in the fight of our lives. And just keep that in mind, and understand that the alternative media is under attack. The people who are giving the information out, my goodness, we are really extremely, we're in the thick of it. And thank you, Daniel. In light of recent events, he writes, it seems that the homosexual agenda fits with the placement of more gay soldiers. And once we Christians are called home, the powers that be will not have all the Christian troops. But anyway, he writes that replacing the homosexual agenda for the military, long planned out, and we're seeing the results of that today. Daniel Holdings, our guest. Daniel, back to you, sir. Before the break, plagues.
Yeah, you're talking about Ebola.
Ebola. What's this? Yeah.
Well, I love that. I love that clip that you played just before we came back in. I think it was Ted. He was talking about medical martial law.
Yep.
How there would be a pandemic, and it is a planned thing. And again, I did write about these things in my books. And there's a scene in one of those books where Bryce's wife is talking on shortwave, and all hell is broken loose, and people have went to ground. And the scene opens with her saying, "Zombies? What do you mean zombies?" And she's talking to somebody in Arizona, I think, and she says, "There's no such thing as zombies." And the guy in Arizona says, "Well, no, not exactly zombies." He says they have. There are people coming over that they are letting over from Mexico now because there's no defense, and I don't want to give too much of the book away, but they have Ebola. But in addition to that, they're not of their right mind. They're like demon-possessed, the guy on the radio says. So Ted is absolutely right. That is where this is going. And you just mentioned something else. Audience, we were going through a list of things that were going to kill off mankind if God didn't speed up the days and step in and put a stop to it. Then there would be no flesh left alive, as the Word says. That's what we're talking about. And that is an interesting thing that Ted just said, because it is true. That is one of the things, and I don't think it's any one thing, folks. We need to understand something. This is a game plan. In a war, right, if you've ever been in the military, you've done any gaming strategy or war strategy, I should say, you have several fronts, you have several flanks. There's all this stuff going on, and all individual parts work together for the betterment of the whole. And they have a plan, and they are imparting many parts of that plan to achieve their end goal, right? We could call the end goal New World Order, whatever the case may be. But the point is that there are a lot of fronts in this war that you're talking about. And while you mentioned it, and we'll stop here for just a second, the homosexual agenda. And, all right, I'm going to get myself in trouble. That's okay. How can I say this tactfully? Men and women have certain functions. Right? We have certain body parts that function in certain ways. Of this, there is no doubt. It takes a man and a woman to procreate. Of that, there is no doubt. The idea that is being promoted by society today that anybody can do whatever they want and that there are no consequences is a lie. And it's a lie straight from hell. And it is an attack, just like all the other more visible attacks I just listed, on mankind itself. Because if the devil could keep mankind from procreating, then he would have won. In fact, if you do your research in the Word, you will find that one of his goals, and, say what you will. I mean, some people may not believe in the Nephilim, but the reason why, that verse out of Genesis 6, it says that all of Noah's generations were pure. And that meant, if you read the original language, it is genetically pure. And why is that important? Because the Messiah was eventually to come down through that line, David and then Messiah down that way. And if the devil could have corrupted the gene pool back then there would be no Messiah. There would be no Jesus. So the point is that there's an onslaught of all of these things that is rushing toward us to shorten mankind, to shorten who we are, to destroy us. And you have people that are embracing that evil. And it's mind-boggling to me.
Daniel, I'm sorry. I just want to reiterate this. Xenogenesis by Steve Quayle, the first chapter I had written life as an investigator is like a box of chocolates. Now that gets into the DNA, and the DNA lineage is so important because the corruption of our DNA. This is why we talk about the Nephilim. This is why we talk about the 200 or the fallen angels. This is why we talk about DNA itself, and because it's a numbers game. You're exactly correct. The homosexual agenda part of it is demonic to the extent that by halting the procreation of the normal DNA. Now, yeah, and you're right, we can easily get in trouble by going down this road. However, the Cain lineage, if you will, or the Merovingian bloodline, the lie behind that, the corruption of our DNA is ultimately the goal of Satan, and it's a numbers game. That it goes back to the flood, and you're right. So, not that you needed verification or authentication or confirmation, but it's people need to understand what's going on. Excuse me.
Well, but Doug, and it's you put that very well, and I'll stop because I could just go on all night long about talking about the hazards to mankind. The point is that we started off talking about how God is increasing the speed of time and bringing time to a close. We don't get killed off because we're doing it to ourselves with all those things and more that I just listed. But here's the point. Okay, we start talking about, does it feel like time is speeding up? And I told you guys at the beginning of the show that rushing toward midnight was a good name for this show because that is exactly what it feels like. Now, remember in the Bible, Joe, what does the Bible say about midnight? What happens at midnight when it comes to the bride?
This is something Steve Quill mentioned last night. Let me find the verse here. Well, there's a few verses.
Remember, you had 10 virgins, right? 5 were ready, 5 were not. Right? 5 had oil, 5 did not.
Yeah.
So the bridegroom comes at midnight, right? Now, folks, I'm not saying the bridegroom's coming yet. Okay, you have to hear me. Because I know look, this is a broad audience. Everybody doesn't agree with everybody. We need to love each other. That's the point, okay? There's none of us preaching heresy at the moment. So, you stand up against heresy, but if there are disagreements in the word, let's just agree to disagree. I know many people in the audience are going to say, well, no, we're not going to have to go through any of that junk because Jesus is going to come and take us away on the rapture. Well, I think you better unpack your bags because I think we're fixing to see some stuff. We are not exempt. Now, you hear many people say, well, we are not given to wrath. People always quote this. Well, your definition of wrath and God's definition of wrath are two different things. I don't really think I want to see God's definition of wrath, but, those Coptic Christians, guys, that got their heads cut off just a couple months ago.
What's their definition of wrath and tribulation? You got it.
That would be tribulation. Right? But that wouldn't be wrath. Right? Well, people are getting killed today. Christians. I saw this horrible picture on Facebook, and I got to be honest. I mean, I've seen plenty of articles of Christians being persecuted by ISIS, over there. And I try not to go to a bunch of them because I know what they say. I know what's going on. It's not like I don't know. And when I see this stuff, it wrenches my heart. And honestly, I can't take it. I mean, I just can't. It breaks my heart. Well, I saw this picture on Facebook where these women were sitting around. You could have thought it was Arab women sitting around, and you would have thought that it was a tea meeting or something. I don't know what they do in the Middle East, but they were all dead, and they were Christians, and they were killed because they were Christians.
Right.
So there's plenty of persecution going on right now. And
True.
you are absolutely right, Doug. You said at the beginning that there's persecution coming here. Audience, understand, there is a huge difference between persecution and tribulation, and there is wrath. The wrath of God will destroy that which he created. Remember what the Word says. The Word says, and it frosts me. I'm just going to take a rabbit trail just because it frosts me, and I had an idea. You know, God put a rainbow in the sky as a covenant between man and himself and said, I will never flood the earth again. And getting back to the homosexual agenda, they stole the rainbow. They stole the covenant, right? They made it something else. But I digress. When God destroys the earth again, it will be by fire, and folks, that is wrath. In Jeremiah, Yeshua comes back, and the Word says that his robes are stained with blood. And he said, I did this. Nobody helped me. I did it myself because of them, because what they did. He's talking about wrath. When God's wrath hits, you will know. But it will not be because Coptic Christians got their heads cut off or Christians get shot in the head. Jesus' own disciples, all of them died except one. They were all martyred. Why are we any different? Did they go through wrath? No, it was tribulation. And the Messiah said, you will have tribulation even as we have always had tribulation. It says you will have tribulation in Mark and Matthew. It says you will have tribulation, and then you will see me. So, folks, if your spiritual bags are unpacked, you need to unpack them and get in the fight. Because, Doug, you are absolutely right. There is a war that is raging around us, and if we think that we are exempt, then we're dead wrong. We're wrong. We are called to be salt and light in a world that is going darker by the day. And time is speeding up, and I cannot even fathom the world that we will see in even a year from now. But I will tell you this, audience. You and I are called to be salt and light. You and I are called to fight. You and I, and I'm not talking necessarily about physically fighting. If you haven't been on your face and repenting of your own sin, interceding for other people in spiritual warfare, I will tell you that you're not doing your job as a believer. Well, that's pretty harsh, Daniel. I go to church, I pay my tithe. I help the little old lady across the street with her groceries. That's not what I'm talking about. You and I, audience, we are called to be warriors. If you're a 9-year-old kid and you have the muscles of a 9-year-old kid, but you know Jesus, you can be a warrior. If you're a middle-aged man in a wheelchair whose legs are atrophied, you can be a warrior.
Amen.
If you're a little old lady and you're stuck and you're at home and you don't get to talk about it because you're shut-in, you can be a warrior. And folks, we are called to be warriors. But yet we sit around, we wring our hands, and we say, oh my, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this? What if we're not supposed to get out of this? Uh-oh, I just stepped on somebody's feet. What if we are supposed to fight until the end? What if it costs us our lives? Because, guys, that's what it's coming to. Doug, you are absolutely right. We are facing persecution. Yes,
I don't know how the Lord works with you, but with me, I'm very hard-headed and stubborn, and I'm open and willing to learn. I always pray that the Lord, I move more towards His will each day, but I seem to learn the hard way. And to give an example that any problems that I have that interfere with my walk with Jesus, I seem to hit rock bottom with those problems before those go out of my life. And it's not, when I pray, it's not that the Lord takes these problems away from me right away, or it seems that with me at least, I don't know how many other people out there experience this, I have to go through the trouble, and it's trouble I put myself through before I understand and see the proper way, or the Lord shows me the proper way. And it reminds me of what you just said, and what the disciples and apostles and the beginning church of Christianity went through. Like you said, they were all martyred. So many martyrs, and it continues to this day. Why do we feel so different that we are not going to have to experience that? Yes, we will be protected. We will be protected spiritually. Through every trial, we grow stronger. The Lord wants us to be and have patience and learn that, and have be good soldiers. But I don't, like I said, I don't know how it works with you, but I seem to make it harder on myself. But it all works out for my benefit in the end.
Joe, thank you for that transparency. And I'd mentioned earlier that I was going to be transparent. I got sidetracked. But it is a very good point, and I can only use myself as an example. The audience, you listen to me on the radio, or you read my books, or you read the stuff I put out, and you think, this guy, he's been doing this a long time. It's easy for him. He's got it, right? It's easy. I have said on more than one occasion that I have been drugged through the knothole, and that was the Lord that drugged me. He beat me about the head and body to get my attention because, guys, there was a time, my wife would attest to this, I had all the answers. I knew everything, and I was always right. And, in business, particularly in the field I was in, you have to know what you're talking about. And I had such an ego and such a head, and my pride was so big. And I don't say that in a boastful way. It was just I don't know how I put up with myself. And the Lord took me, and I just have a picture. If you have a balloon, it's like taking that balloon or a ball and just squishing it, all the air comes out. I mean, he crushed me. He crushed me. And then at the end of that, and I laying there going, God, why? I served you. I was in church. I did these things and this, and I gave, and blah, 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 blah. And he says, I want your heart. I said, God, but I've been a believer for so long. No, I want your heart. I want those secret places. I want you to understand what you get, what you think you have, skills and that knowledge and that ability. They come from me, not yours. And you've taken credit for them. And you've done things with them that are not me. You've used them for your own benefit. So, Joe, it was at that time, in the middle of that crushing, and I don't think I've ever told this story before, in the middle of that crushing or after that crushing, that I was broken. And I don't say that in boasting because I wish that on no one. It was then that God gave me 3 days in the belly of the beast. It was then. And I wrote that book. It was like a download. I wrote that book in 2 weeks. It took months to make it right, but I wrote it in 2 weeks. And it has things in it that I could not know. This is the point, audience. Coming, and now is, when you and I have to be walking in the strength and the power of His might and not our own. You see, because as I mentioned at the beginning of this is a war that is being fought on multi-level. It is a multi-dimensional war. It is a war in the physical. We see the Supreme Court make a ruling that just is tearing at the foundation of our country. It is a spiritual war where you see teenagers killing themselves because there's no hope. This is a multi-dimensional war until we understand that. And we are not going to be prepared to fight. So, and this is why I bring up that story that I just told you, because those books, audience, that I wrote, I didn't write them, they were the Lord's books. They contain things that I cannot know, that you need to know. I don't know how else to tell you that. You get people sell stuff here all the time. That's not what this is about. One of the other things that the Lord had me do, and I did it willingly, because I love Him, because I never want to go back to the way it was. He had me lay down my life, and those things that I once did for money, I don't do anymore. Not that they were bad things. I mean, it was a legal living, but all the talents and all the intelligence and everything else that He gave me, they're His, and I wanted to use them for Him. And so, I write books, and I do little odd jobs, and that's how I raise money to have my family live off of. And it's not been easy, but I knew time was short, and so I was willing to lay down my life. And how did you have to hear me? I'm not saying that out of boasting. It was that serious. I pulled up my resume the other day, and it's impressive. It's impressive. Wow, that's not me anymore. I mean, that history is there, but it's not me anymore. My life is not my own. It is the Lord's. And I do the things that I do because my life is His. And He told me not too long ago, and many of you have heard me tell this story. I was in church. Just when I was still in mainstream church, and I was in a worship service, and people jumped around all happy. God loves me. I'm free. And my heart was crushing because I was researching for 3 days of the Billy Beast, and I knew what was coming. And I said, Lord, what about them? What about them? They don't understand. They're asleep. And I heard the Holy Spirit say, and it shook my inside. He said, time is at an end. And I sat down. I was stunned. It was like I was slapped. And I sat down. I said, what do you mean, Lord? And He said, time. He said it again. Time is at an end. And I said, what do you mean? And I was asking, and that's all he said. He didn't say anything else. But I never forgot that. That was about 6 or 7 years ago. And I've never forgot that. And I laid down my life because I knew time was almost up. And audience, I don't know what you're doing with your life. I'm not suggesting that you stop going to work. Far be it from me. I'm not suggesting that you stop paying your bills. That's not what we're saying. I'm not saying any of those things. What I am saying is that you and I need to sit down and to evaluate those things that are important to us. Because, Joe, I'm hard-headed too. And, buddy, I don't wish anybody to have to go through the things that I had to go through in order for God to get my attention. Folks, this is the time, now, right now, to be on our face before Him. And I mean that literally. Get on your face. Get on your stomach. Humble yourself before the Lord and talk to Him, maybe for the first time in your life like that. And let Him expose those things in our lives that are sin, that shouldn't be there. And then repent of them. Not, I'm sorry. Repenting is turning the other way. Go the other way. And then ask Him for His Holy Spirit to fill you and to do what needs to be done in these days. And just like in Acts, the Word says, filled with power from on high. Folks, we need God's power now like never before. As I'm thinking about this, I need to the offer that I made at the beginning, that an additional 15% off for those books. If you buy them on my website and you put a note there, I will refund you that 15%. You mentioned that we were going to talk about it there. Yeah. You have it. But, this is the reason why you need them, folks, because there are things in these books that are not mine. They're supernatural. You need to know them. And I talk about the main character in that series is much the same way. I mean, God had to whip him for him to fall in line. For him, folks, don't let yourself to have to be whipped. Yield. Listen, because as I said at the very beginning of the show, every knee will bow. and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Will you do so willingly, or will you do so because you have to? Do it now. Do it now. And in doing it now, you too can find that peace that surpasses all understanding.
Very true. If we don't do it now, I mean, we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. So now is the time. Today, right now, is the time, and everyone really needs to understand that. I've never been so convinced as I am today that we're out of time. And when I say we're out of time, I mean, Steve Quayle says it all of the time. There are no political solutions for spiritual problems. You've outlined some spiritual problems and addressed some issues in your writings, which I just found very prophetic. Okay, now in preparation of tonight's show, I was able to go through your book again, and I thought, my goodness, it's incredible. And you're right, it's incredible, how you put things together. And some might say, well, it doesn't take a prophet to see, what's coming. But there are a few items in there that really surprised me. For example, you mentioned at the beginning of the show the creation of this foreign entity, this foreign group. Really, we know it as ISIS. You refer to it by a different name. However, it's just it predates your I don't want to say prophecy. Your insight predated the actual creation of this group, even before it was ever thought of. I mean, well before it was thought of. Having said that, it just your writings provide guidance too, and not only that, but a form of comfort, if I can add. Yeah, there's problems, but there's a level of comfort there, and of course, obedience, as you spoke of, and repentance, falling upon our face before God. We need to do this. So, very true. All of it, man. It's crazy how fast time is going, Daniel. It really is. Both in the show as well as in the real world. Where to next?
Well, my third book, Between the Veil. The problem with putting out a book is that people want the next book. Right,
yeah.
And guys, you guys are so gracious, and as I said, you give me an open opportunity to call you anytime I feel impressed to be on, and I hold that very dear, because I don't want to. I told somebody today, I don't want to get on there and just run my mouth. I mean, it's got to be the Lord. I don't want to just talk about books and fun stuff and interesting stuff and even scary stuff and be entertaining. That's not the point. And because Doug and Joe are watchmen, and they are a microphone for watchmen, I count that very serious. And so I hadn't wanted to come on here until I really felt that the Lord had given me something to say to you, audience. And it's the same with writing. Somebody was on me about, well, when's your next book coming out? It hadn't even been a year since my last book came out. And, I honestly, I like writing, but writing a novel is like, I don't know, a blanket party in the military or something. It's like it is no fun. I mean, it is painful. It is work. It is no fun. And, I've struggled with whether or not there would be another novel in this series, because honestly, I don't know how much time we have. And the Between the Veil that came out just last October or November, whenever it came out, it's it put us in a place in that storyline where things were very serious, and the next place for that story to go is not a good place. It's a depressing place, and I fight with that because that storyline, it's about to get really, really serious. And, it's interesting because I have reflected on those books, and it is remarkable how close they are now running to real life, and I've wrote them over years. You asked me where to next, and I mentioned nuclear war. And
exactly.
Of course, that is a storyline in my book. But folks, let's get to some of the news that I think is so important. We talked about the Supreme Court decision, but in addition to that, there was a Supreme Court decision that people were shocked at and very dismayed at, but it was the decision on TPP just a few days before the decision on gay marriage. And folks, if you don't understand what happened with TPP, and I know you guys have talked about it infinitum, and you're very well versed on it, audience, that decision, that piece of, I don't want to call it legislation because it's really kind of a proclamation, is
exactly.
It is stealing our country away. Our country has been stolen out from under us. You need to understand that. You were right when you quoted Steve Quayle, and I love the saying. I love the man, and I love that saying when he says there is no political solution for a spiritual problem. There are some of you that are saying, come on, you're rubbing your hands together. You're saying, come on, November. Come on, November 2016. We're almost there. We're going to get these. Folks, one of the things, and I'm going to get part of the storyline away, but you need to hear this. In that book, Between the Veil, I wrote that president at the time, in the book, the fictional president, never left office, that he was the last president of the United States. And I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it on your program, but I'm going to say it now. I believe that Barack Obama is the last president of the real United States. And if you think for 1 second that an election will change the course of this country, you are fooling yourselves. You are kidding yourselves. This is much larger than a political problem. This is much larger even than a social problem. The sooner we come to grips with the idea that we need to be on our faces and repentant before a God that is about to judge our country, the sooner you will have a leg up on what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean, now hear me clearly, audience, right? Somebody come from my family, then I'm going to defend them. You need to understand that. When it comes to feeding my family, I'm going to prepare to do that. When it comes to trying to keep them safe, I'm going to do that. But when I'm not talking about those pragmatic things, and I dare say, an audience, whoever's listening, because I know you have a lot of people listening, trolls and whatever, right? Doug and Joe Hagmann are not saying this. Blog Talk is not saying this. This is Daniel Holdings, right? And I'm not even promoting it. But in case there's any misunderstanding, right, I'm not promoting what I'm about to say. I'm just making an observation. The goal behind all of this is to cause a civil war and to cause civil unrest. And they will get what they are trying to do. And that audience is also in those books.
Yep.
Because, as I said, this is a plan, guys. They didn't just all of a sudden say, well, we're going to do this, or we're going to do this, or we're going to... No, this is a plan. They are playing out a plan before us. And their goal is chaos. Because remember, Doc, I'm not laughing because I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's ridiculous, but it's true. What is the motto of the New World Order?
Oh, order out of chaos.
Order out of chaos. They cannot bring order, their kind of order, unless they bring chaos. That's what all this is designed for, folks. Everything that you see. And then the other thing that needs to happen, also in my books, is they have to cull the population. They have to cull the population. Yep. They have to kill off the population. Now, some of you are going, uh-oh, this guy's really lost it. There's a little thing, and folks, there are two things that I posted on my website. I did that today for your benefit, so you can go there and take a look at it. Two things that I wanted to hit in this show that I thought were so important that we address. There are two videos. The first video is a video about the Georgia Guidestones. And you guys have read the books. You know the Georgia Guidestones are in the books. And the 10 Commandments of them, right? So that's one of the things. The other one is the interpreted, should I say it that way, not interpreted, the decoded comments by Christina Lagarde, who's the IMF chief, about the magic number 7 earlier this year. So those two things are up there, right? And it would behoove you, audience, to go to the website and look at those two videos because they're very important to this conversation. In the Georgia Guidestones, it says to keep the population at 500 million, right? 500 million. Now, Joe, you're young, you're astute, you're educated. How many people are on the earth right now?
What do they say, about 7 billion?
At least 100.
There's probably, actually it was like 7.5 something. So I think it's getting close to 8 billion, I think, getting close there. So if they want to keep the population to 500 million, it means that they have to kill off more than 90% of the population. Now, folks, if you've never, and I know this is the Hagmann Hagmann Report, and you all, if you're listening to the show, you probably know about the Georgia Guidestones, but if perchance you haven't heard about the Georgia Guidestones, you need to go look it up online, because that's the first commandment of the Georgia Guidestones. Now, and it goes down with all this other stuff. I do have a favorite commandment on those Georgia Guidestones. It says something like, do away with useless politicians or something. It's like one of those commandments. I like that idea. but anyway, this is why I bring it up. So their commandment is it's like the 10 Commandments, but their commandment is to keep the population of 500 million. Right? In order to do that, that means that we have to get rid of 90%. Now, how are they going to do that? There's a lot of conspiracy theories, if you will, about how that's going to happen. Another little tidbit out of the books, I talk about the Denver airport and the murals on the Denver airport and some of those. These are fictional books, right? So some of the murals on there, there's like people getting gassed on the murals in the Denver airport, and there's this whole discussion about the Denver airport. If you look online and do your own research, it is not what it appears to be. And at any rate, when you look at what could happen with a nuclear war, with a biological war, with a pandemic, maybe they don't come out and kill everybody outright, but maybe they just let things happen. And you have a significant reduction in the population. Now, if you think I'm crazy, hold on to your seats, because there's even a little bit crazier piece of evidence that I have for you now. That video that I just mentioned that I posted on my website, it is taken from a drone that is flying over the Georgia Guidestones. And folks, there is fresh blood on top of the Georgia Guidestones. And these things are huge. You can't just climb up there. They're huge. It almost looks like that slab has been used as a sacrifice altar? Could it be that there was indeed a sacrifice made? There is a lot of blood, dried blood, but it's bright red. It's not brown like it's been there a long time. Could it be that they have, in fact, used that top stone as an altar to begin to bring about those things that they have planned all along? I don't know. Have you guys seen that video?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that video, and it is very strange. Yet, without seeing it, for myself, it's hard to wonder. The blood was the first thing that I thought of, and it was highlighted in the video's title. But
regardless,
would they be that?
I mean, it doesn't have to be blood, okay? But regardless, it all it has to do is give the impression of blood, and you've got the same effect. However, what you're talking about, Daniel, is perhaps it was used as an instrument of sacrifice or an altar of sacrifice. That certainly is not out of the realm of possibilities, given all that we're seeing today. But regardless, message sent, program input.
Well, the other video that's on the website today is that video, as I said, with Christine Lagarde. What is her name? Lagarde.
Lagarde.
Christine
Lagarde.
Lagarde. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
She's looking a little worried these days because of all that's going on with Greece. But the other thing that was brought up in that video was her magic number 7 and the things that she's talking about. Folks, I'm not going to do the math for you. However, the person that did this video, I think, accurately points to July 25th, 2015, as the message that Christine Lagarde was trying to send in that talk she gave earlier this
that was
year.
To the National. That's right, National Press Club. And by the way, there's a lot of detractors out there saying, well, it was taken out of context. No, it wasn't. It was a conspiracy theorists are really into it. It's a fodder for conspiracy theorists. Look, it was a bizarre presentation by the head of the IMF. Deal with it.
It was. It was, and it's not the first one she's made. She's made comments like this. The one last year was equally strange. However, this person, I think, accurately points to July 25th, 2015. Now, what is significant about that day? You guys know what's significant about that day?
Jewish feast day and blood moon?
No. But
okay.
You're not far off. It is the 9th of Av. It is historically a really, really bad day for Jews and for Israel, historically. It is a bad day. Tish B'Av, that's right. It's a bad day. And for her to use that language to point to that day, it's very significant because this year, okay, here's some of my crazy conspiracy theories that some of you may not agree with. This year is a Shemitah year, and you've heard Jonathan Kahn, I think he's probably been on your show, talking about the significance of a Shemitah year. That year starts a year of Jubilee. That doesn't happen until September 24th. Interestingly enough, the Pope's going to be here in that day, and during that time, talking to the U.S. Congress, talking to the United Nations. And I wonder what they're going to be talking about. Supposedly he's going to be talking about the guidelines for a new world order, really. I forget the name of it, but that's really what he's talking about. However, with the resolution about Palestine, I think they'll probably try to divide Israel. Now, say what you will. There are a lot of people that say, well, the Jews that are in Israel aren't really Jews, and all this other stuff. It doesn't matter. The Bible says that God says that Jerusalem is His. That's what the Bible says. It doesn't say that it's the Jews. It doesn't say it says, He says that it is His. And it says that it becomes a cup of trembling in the last days. And I will tell you this, when, not if, when they divide Jerusalem, and if we are leading the pack as we already are, because the United States has historically to divide Jerusalem and make a Palestinian country. If that happens, when that happens, and Obama's already said that he will not stop it, if we lead the fight to divide Jerusalem, you think it's going to be bad already with all the stuff that is coming on? I will tell you this, audience. If we aid them in dividing Jerusalem, God will divide our land. And another little snippet out of my book, if you've read anything in those books, you know there's something called the New Madrid Fault. And I've done a little research. That sucker will go off, and it would make the earthquakes in the late 1800s look like child's play. It will rip our country in half. That is where we're headed. That is why we need to be on our face. Because things are transpiring, whether we agree with them or not. This is our country. We are Americans, as much as that pains me to say during these days. But if we have a part in that simply because we are Americans, we will feel that judgment. And
yes, we will.
There's no better time to be on our face before the Lord, because I don't want any part of that judgment. I don't. So, Lord, if there's anything that you can do to stop that, Lord, please. Please. Because it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly.
Well, indeed. You know, look at the blessings and curses when dealing with Israel, and specifically the scriptures about Jerusalem. Of course, Genesis 12, verse 3, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So, you know, as it applies to our treatment of Israel, and Steve Quayle made it very clear, and Pastor Langford yesterday made it very clear about Israel, God's Israel, not the man's Israel. Okay. Two separate things. So, but that said, regardless, who owns? Who's got title deed to Jerusalem? Let me ask you. Hey, really? I mean, who has title deed to the city of Jerusalem?
Well, he said it's his. He said it's his. I mean, it says clearly the word it's his. It's not anybody else's, it's his. He just simply allows people to live there. Right? The promised land was his promise to them. He gave them his land.
You know, and it's we saw it beginning under Carter. You can go back to really the beginning, but Carter really did a lot to divide and to cause problems with Israel, with Jerusalem. Nixon wasn't, Kissinger and Nixon, they did some things. However, under Carter, it really accelerated. Clinton as well, 1993, Oslo, the peace accords. And, of course, now you've got Barack Hussein Obama. Yes, you caught that inflection of Hussein. Look what he's doing with respect to Israel. We are not just turning our back on Israel. We are actually antagonizing. We are poking at Israel to the extent we're treating them like an enemy, and that's going to have consequences.
Not even that, though. I mean, the man is embracing Iran, a nuclear Iran. I mean, this is just insane. I mean, we poke our best ally in the eye, and we embrace the evil of Iran. I mean, I don't know. It just flabbergasts me. I mean, how can any logical American look back and say, "Well, this is normal"? How can you say that? I don't know.
Well, certainly all eyes should be on Jerusalem. All eyes are on Jerusalem in terms of the geopolitics of the Middle East, I believe. And, you're exactly right in the importance of what we're seeing over there. Iran does play a very critical role, I believe, in the end times with respect to the Middle East geopolitics. So, and you've addressed this, again, in your books and the geopolitics of the fictitious president, if you will. And I think that we're seeing right now the playing out of prophecy as it relates to the U.S. ties to Jerusalem. It's coming. It's coming in a big way.
Well, it certainly is, and I'm reminded. I don't know what you said, but it reminded me about T.D. Hale's vision, where he saw the President of the United States step out on the Roosevelt balcony and shoot the eagle and said he's killed off democracy. We kill off democracy in Israel. There's no more democracy in the Middle East.
That's true.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
Yep.
It makes no sense of what is going on in the Middle East, in our own country, unless you understand that it is happening via a plan. This is the way things are supposed to be playing out. And it's not a novel from Daniel Holding's books. This is the way that the powers that be have scripted things to play out. And this is why there's no better time for us to be on our faces before the Lord. Because there are things that are coming that will change the world forever.
Yeah, that's very true.
And Daniel, we're at the end of the second hour. Again, if people go to your website, danielholdings.com, and they order the 3-book package and put in the code Rushing Toward Midnight, you said it was a 15% discount you were offering?
20.
Right. 20. The package is already, because it's a package, 5% off, and I will give you an additional 15% off. It's a refund right on your credit card when I process the order, and that makes it a 20% discount. I don't do that. I will do that for you guys because time is short, folks.
Boy, it sure is, and it's a good buy, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, and I understand too, and the folks, you've got to understand that it's the package of books. It's combined that way to give you the most knowledge, and of course, the structuring too of the rebate is 15%, 5% is already programmed in there. 15% will be rebated. Can they just put Hagmann in there, or does it have to be Russian judgment?
That's fine. If they just say that they heard me on your show, that's fine.
Cool. All right. Very good. Very good.
Anything you'd like to close out with, Daniel?
Only this, folks. And it is not my goal to spread fear. It is not my goal to make your hearts quake. It is my goal to show you that one way or the other, we are going to stand before a mighty God, the creator of the universe, and that every knee will bow and every tongue confess. That you and I need to do so willingly and lovingly, and that regardless of how things play out, that relationship, when we embrace Him like we never have before, when we are repentant, when we are on our face before Him, that we can find peace that surpasses all understanding, regardless of a world that's going crazy.
Very well said. Very well articulated.
Thanks for
guys,
coming on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation, and I appreciate the open mic. It's always a pleasure, guys, and I look forward to being with you again soon.
All right, brother.
Absolutely, Daniel. God bless you and your family, and until next time, take care, and thanks for your time.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
That was author Daniel Holdings. His website, again, is www.danielholdings.com. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these short messages. You're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this Thursday, July 2nd, 2015. We're going to come back with news in addition to the Hagmann Hagmann Report. If you joined us late, Daniel Holdings was our guest in the first 2 hours. DanielHoldings.com is his website. Tomorrow night, Paul McGuire will be joining us, and it's going to be a fantastic show, just like last night's show was with Steve Quayle and Pastor David Langford. Fantastic show led by the Holy Spirit and Pastor Langford. It was just fantastic. We're going to be hitting news this hour, news headlines, and breaking down some of the things we weren't able to talk about earlier this week as we had a full plate of guests.
Yeah. Before you know what, Joe, before you hit the news, I just want to reaffirm something here, and this I'm speaking from the heart. In fact, I'll be delivering more of a message tomorrow. Just watch the website, please. Folks, please understand the alternative media is under attack. The truth tellers are under attack. The people who are in positions to bring you the truth, the attack is extremely it's starting. Rick Wiles, of course, Exhibit A, perhaps. Grand jury subpoenaed his programming because of his reporting on Canadian homosexual teachers. You've got Ted Rohr being unceremoniously taken off the air. We were his last guest this show. You've got there are numerous other. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if next week the alternative media landscape looked a little bit different. I just want you to just understand too that we're making preparations. We don't expect to have any immediate problems, but we do foresee problems in the future. Having said that, please understand that we are making preparations, and you will be advised with respect to what we're doing and how we're doing it, and where you can tune in. Just understand. And the other thing I want to mention too, this weekend, specifically the 4th, it falls on a Saturday. I would be very, very cautious as to what is potentially going to take place, especially in the Northeast Corridor from New York to Baltimore to Philadelphia, in that area in particular.
Well, I heard Fox News was saying that there was an attack is imminent this weekend. They were reporting, and this from the New York Times. Potential holiday threats assessed with focus on lone wolf terrorists. Since the attacks of September 11, 2001, Americans' counterterrorism officials have increased security at national landmarks and large public events ahead of major holidays and significant anniversaries, and issued bulletins calling for increased vigilance by the public. But this 4th of July weekend has spawned particularly strong warnings about a potential attack, as the federal authorities and national security experts say the United States is more susceptible now because of its tactics chosen for recent terrorist strikes by the Islamic State. Again, this from the New York Times.
Yeah, and we understand, too, that the powers want you to be in a perpetual state of fear in order to subjugate you, the people of the United States and all Western countries, with more police actions, more militarized police. We understand that concept. That's not to say, however, that these potential attacks, even if they're false flags, does that mean they're not attacks? They're not a danger, a threat to you? No. We understand the distinction and the difference between the warnings and the actual attacks. Nonetheless, the conditions that we're talking about right now are ripe for such an attack. And we have invited this. When I say we, I'm talking about Obama and his renegade band of merry men, or there should be a question mark after men, and women. Another question mark, too. Hillary Clinton, of course, in the wake of her tenure as Secretary of State, what she had done over in the Middle East and throughout North Africa and, of course, all across that the Arab land there. It's the blowback will be immense. Trust me when I say this. Also, the unchecked immigration, illegal aliens into the country. It's no accident. It's some will reduce it to say, well, it's for the Democratic votes. Yes, it's for that. However, it's for much more than that. It's to destroy this country from within, water down the demographics, the illegal aliens in this country. And speaking about that, just very quickly here, Ann Coulter. Now, some of you know Ann Coulter, and I'm not necessarily a fan of Ann Coulter. I mean, she Ann Coulter is Ann Coulter, okay, period. But just to put things in perspective, she had a book signing, and this was in Costa Mesa, California. She was signing copies of her new book, Adios America, The Left's Plan to Turn Our Country into a Third World Hellhole. Now, again, it's all reduced to politics with these pundits. It's all about politics. That doesn't make, however, her statistics, the information in the book, even though it's politically biased, it doesn't make the information untrue. Having said that, what was the reaction by the people there at this book signing? The unbridled hubris, the unafraid, contentious attitude of protesters, burning her or ripping, destroying her book in the streets, yelling at her, go back to Europe, and Coulter. One statement in particular got to me. Okay. One slogan, one chant. Listen to this. Undocumented and unafraid. Okay. That should tell you everything you need to know.
I saw the other day, it was, aside from Ann Coulter, there was a illegal gay pride event outside the White House.
Yeah.
Where the homosexual or LGBT illegal aliens laid in front of the White House as a demonstration. I don't know exactly what they were.
They were waiting for Bathhouse Berry to come out. But 50 years ago, that would be considered an arrest-rich environment, or certainly the lawless nature of what we're seeing is just playing out right before our very eyes. You tell me. I mean, if a confessed, well, these are obviously self-proclaimed confessed lawbreakers, lying down in front of the most powerful building in the country, ostensibly speaking, yet what? No one arrests them? What would have happened to them 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago? No, right now, see, undocumented and unafraid, Joe. That's the phrase. And their hubris to say, go back to Europe and Coulter. Okay, well, you can, when you start understanding the Tavistock Institute, the role that they play in programming the masses here in this country, okay, you have to understand what's going on with these illegal immigrants. This is a huge psychologically programmed war. That's clumsily stated, but we are undocumented and unafraid. Just remember that phrase, because that's exactly what these criminals are. They're criminals that are unafraid. And one last thing I want to mention, I'm going to turn it back to you, Joe. I was doing some research, and I'll say that the hate crimes against Christians right now, churches in particular, and to right behind churches, the synagogues, Jewish synagogues and schools in America, in particular in the 5 boroughs of New York City, has increased dramatically over the last, I believe it is 90 days. Now, the statistics on them, they don't keep statistics federally. However, in conversation with a pretty knowledgeable official in the borough of Manhattan, had said that the noticeable increase was disconcerting, and they are expecting some type of uprising by Muslims in New York proper, especially in the borough of Manhattan, at any time against Christians. The exact words were, if a Christian was beheaded in the name of Christianity, wouldn't be surprised. In Central Park, on the streets of New York City, wouldn't be surprised. Combine that as well. That same source was talking about the racial component to what's taking place right now. The black roving gangs in New York City, in Baltimore. Now this is from another source within the local law enforcement. The Inland Harbor in Baltimore, triple the racial black on white crime in the Inland Harbor area of Baltimore, tripled over the last 60 days, over the last 2 months, since the beginning of the nicer weather. So expect more. Oh, and the media is not reporting on any of this. You're not going to hear this on NBC, ABC, CBS, or even Fox News. They are refusing to report this. Melissa Harris Perry said, "We're not going to make it any worse for the blacks. We're not going to report on black on white crime." Don't believe me?
That's what she said?
That's exactly what she said.
Wow. Why even bother reporting on anything? I mean,
this is how these people think.
We don't want to offend ISIS, so let's, let's not report on their crime. I mean, when does this stop?
It's not going to stop. See, that's
the divide and conquer mentality. This is what Daniel was alluding to earlier in our show, talking about order out of chaos, the New World Order. They do this through a divide and conquer mentality. They want each and every person who has different opinions, different beliefs, not only to combat against each other, but to hate each other. Black versus white. No matter what it is, they have an enemy set up against that other belief system. And they're dividing us, breaking us down through a system of hate, which we as Christians have to be vigilant, as the Lord told us and explained to us and laid out in the New Testament how we are to live. We cannot live with that hate.
That doesn't mean that we have to be sissified.
No, but we are to be good soldiers of the Lord, and we are to obey His moral code, and hate is not a part of that. And that doesn't mean don't be vigilant or don't accept it, things that aren't, it doesn't mean, like last night we talked about the Supreme Court's decision on homosexual marriage. Obviously we don't have to incorporate that as part of our belief system, but we don't have to, you understand what I'm saying.
Well, right. Yes, there's righteous anger, and then there's actions that cause further divisiveness.
And we're not going to go burn down the Supreme Court because we don't like their decision, or start it. You know what I mean? But
Correct.
We do have to remain vigilant, because there are people out there, as we talked about, through the as Daniel referenced again, the spiritual battle that is going on. We are seeing people are growing more impatient, intolerant. And I'm not talking about the church, I'm talking about society in general. And as this intolerance and impatience plays out, it's going to get more violent. It's going to get more convoluted and twisted. And many people will be asking why. Crimes are going to increase. Chaos in the mind is going to increase. That's why we need to be grounded in faith.
Of course. Absolutely, we do. So many things taking place. I do really want to reiterate. Please keep an eye, folks, on things. Stay close to the news. this weekend, specifically Saturday. Please do that.
I thought you were going to say keep your eye on your grill.
Yeah.
No. But yes, I mean, if you're going to be out, if you're going to be around other people in crowds, if you're going to be at anywhere in the public, be extra vigilant. If you, there's a lot of false reporting going out there. I saw reporting people saying that the FBI is contacting militia groups asking them to, No, I did some research on that. That's not true. That is completely untrue. The FBI did not contact any militia groups. They're setting up these command centers across the United States, not because of potential attacks from ISIS, but they're using ISIS as an excuse to set up these command centers.
Thank you. Yesterday. The way you said that, it made it sound like the reports of that taking place are not true. They are.
The reports of the police contacting militia groups for help and
for that purpose.
Yeah.
That's not the purpose. That's correct, because I was able to verify through my source that in fact the Pennsylvania source in Pennsylvania associated with the Oath Keepers was contacted. And that was the purpose given, but that's not the true purpose. You're correct in saying
Stuart Rhodes issued a statement saying no, the FBI did not contact them, and that the call to be vigilant should always be there for the Oath Keepers and for any Americans, because Americans are the front line, he said, and that shouldn't mean for this holiday only. This should be always. And he said the FBI did not contact them, and but it doesn't make a difference that they are going to, keep their head on a swivel, I think was the quote, if I remember correctly. As we all should.
That's right. All right. If we can open the phone lines if you want to do that, Joe. I'm just looking through. There's just
we do have people on
a litany of things that we need to talk about, but
I think it's interesting. We always talk about the unemployment numbers. It's funny, the unemployment rate dropped to 5.3%, yet a new record of 93,626,000 are not in the labor force.
Well,
it's funny how that happened.
The numbers go back. These are 1977 percentages. Okay, this is not the people in the labor force. The number of people in the labor force are not in the labor force. We've not seen these numbers since 1977. And I dare say that when you look at shadow stats, when you look at the actual numbers, you're looking at a huge difference, a disparity between what did they say, 5.3%? Okay. Yeah. Okay. No. Add a 20 to that. You're looking at more of a 24.
Yeah, it's a 31.
Right.
Percent.
Exactly. And it depends on how you crunch the numbers, whether it's 24 or 31, but it's certainly not. The 5.3 is just ridiculous. The BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, reports that 432,000 jobs were lost in June. Okay, so we just keep taking hits and hits and hits. The important part of this to take a look at is the TPP and the TIP, the TPP, and also the TPA, and also the Atlantic side of the TPP. Okay, not the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but the Atlantic one as well. The acronym, which I don't have in front of me, but
TIPA,
something. TIPP. Yeah, that is that's a final blow to the middle class of this country. You can, folks, if you have the opportunity, certainly you can take a look at John Coleman. Dr. John Coleman wrote a book called The Vanishing Middle Class. In it, he talks about NAFTA, GATT, the NAFTA agreements. What happened there. The Rockefeller. Why was the agreement? NAFTA, for example, why was that agreement placed under the National Security Agency, under wraps by the National Security Agency, much like what's being done with the TPP, in secret? So the TPP and the TIP,
whatever
that thing, the Atlantic one, extremely important. extremely important to keep your eyes on and to understand that this is really what a lot of the smokescreen, a lot of the Confederate flag stuff is hiding. But we must remember, despite what we're being told, the President of the United States is not allowed by law to make trade agreements any more than the Supreme Court is allowed by God to redefine marriage. So, yet it's being done. So that's all right. I'll turn it back to you.
Let's go to the phone lines. We have a number of callers on there, and
let's see if we can get through them.
707 area code. We're going to come to you first. 707. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, this is Gina.
Hi, Gina.
And I noticed over the past few years that I had gotten a lot of rejection and attacks, and it's been escalating. And sometimes I have trouble just wanting to go on. It's so hard. But I realize that it's not me that they don't like, it's the truth. And I love your show because you guys talk about the truth. Like, no one in my circle will listen to the show with me, and they went from angry to, like, ganging up to just straight up attacking. And so I wanted to address the first thing that we were talking about this evening, though. It was time speeding up.
Oh, yes.
And I agree with that, definitely. I said to myself this week, I was like, you're going to have to start multitasking since time speeding up, do two things at once, because you can't get the same stuff done in one day. It's kind of obvious. It really is.
I'm glad you agree with. And I do suspect that 90%, at least 90% of our listeners would agree with that. But something you said before, I just don't want to allow that to go by very quickly. I want to just address something you said, and that's the fact that it's difficult sometimes to go on. I'm not sure if those were the words you used. I understand. Yeah. We understand, and we feel the very same way at times. A lot of times, the oppression, the depression that you feel is sometimes insurmountable. And you're not alone. Please understand, you're not alone in that. Sometimes you don't even want to get out of bed, or when you're out of bed, you want to go crawl back in, and crawl up in a ball, and it hurts your heart, doesn't it? It just hurts.
Well, it's scary too. Like, all my supplies are gone and stuff. But I realized this week when it wasn't me that this was happening to, but it's the truth that I tell, that I need to really pray for forgiveness for myself and a lot of stuff I've done, because grace period's ending and we are coming into judgment. And so if we're soldiers, we can't quit, and we have to stand for others that are unaware of what's happening. They're under a strong delusion. Like, that's obvious too, to the point where the people that are attacking the truth, principally, believing that they're doing it righteously.
Yes.
So our job
very well said.
Hang in there.
Yeah, it is. And while hanging in there, it sounds like, by the way, you're doing a very good job. While hanging in there, understand you're not alone, and these feelings are normal, because rejection of the truth to me, is nothing more than a method by your detractors to deal with their own insecurity in their fear. It really is, because it's right out there. All the information is right out there, but people choose not to hear it. Oh, man.
I find the people with the most materialistic possessions don't listen the most, and sometimes I just say, well, they're possessed by their possessions, and then I'm thankful that I've been brought low. But I've had a lot of visions, too, that started from the beginning of the year of fires and judgment, Hawaii exploding, and then Las Vegas, like the Ring of Fire. I agree with that, too. and I had visions of La Brea tar pits, the actual tar forming creatures flying out, and the city all in red and orange. And so I moved away from the city, and we are definitely going to see some judgment.
I think we have to. I mean, I think we have. I think judgment
not
has
getting
been.
Out of it. We're gonna
right.
be there for the people to tell them to stand in the gap.
Amen. And you know, we all have our roles to play, and I just want to reiterate something that you are so important. And everyone listening, you've got you are born for this time, and you've got a specific job to do. So please, you know, really seek that job out, what it is. And it sounds to me like your job is to inform others, despite the resistance. I mean, I don't know. Wow. You know, wow. Just know you're not alone.
Okay. Yeah, I've made a lot of Christian family friends this year. The Lord's given me a new family. It's not always by blood, but the blood that links us is in John 3:16, the blood of Christ. And that's the real family that's forming. And that I think we'll be going home soon, but we're going to have to try to bring as many people as we can with us. Just don't give up.
Amen.
Never give up.
Thank you.
Thanks, kiddo. Yeah. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye. What a great call.
Thanks, Gina.
What a great call.
Absolutely. Let's go to the next caller, area code 843. 843, we're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, Doug and Joe. It's Connie Lake Troy calling you from South Carolina.
Hey, South Carolina. Good to hear from you. Troy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Hey, I don't want to keep you on the line too long, but I need to get your mailing address because I'm doing my tithing tonight, and I want to start sending something to you. So can you give it to me real quick?
Okay. Now here are the instructions. In unmarked, non-sequential, $100 bills. No, I'm just I'm kidding.
Well, in that case, let me start my printing press, because if the government's doing it, why not us?
Hey, that's right. Yeah, exactly. If you go to HagmannandHagmann.com, that's HagmannandHagmann.com on the right-hand side is our mailing address. But for those interested, for whatever reason, and we receive a lot of letters, a lot of information, we just very simply address whatever you might be sending to us to Hagmann Investigative Services, Inc. All right? And that's the reason, when I say this, the reason is this. We are not a 501c3. We are a corporation that is umbrellaed under our investigative, that's Hagmann Investigative Services Incorporated. And our mailing address is P.O. Box 9534. The city is Erie, E-R-I-E, Pennsylvania, 16505. Now, again, that goes, 16505. That's Post Office Box 9534. And it doesn't matter. We receive a lot of great information, inspirational letters, information. So whatever you have to send, if it's for snail mail purposes, that's the place. It's on HagmannandHagmann.com on the right-hand side. We love getting and I opened a letter today, and it had a picture of a listener and his dog, and that immediately went up on our board of dog owners and their dogs. So anyway, Troy, that's hopefully that answers your question. But what else is on your mind, buddy?
Well, I hope you don't get upset, but I really may have to check to you because I don't know. Well, I'm just trying to get it done because I want to make sure I got it out. So if you don't know, I'll just mail it out.
That's fine. And we are a listener-supported show, and we do have a certain number of sponsors to help us pay some of the bills, but it's wow, it's a pretty top-heavy or pretty heavy load. But thank you so much. But no problem at all. I'll just keep it from Joe, and I'm kidding. I'm kidding around.
Nothing against you, Joe. I'm just trying to get it done. But on a lighter note, which wasn't too late, we had that Charleston shooting. It was about 15 miles from my home, and to see the community come together and stand together. And they didn't want the agitators to come down. We'll leave it at that. They stood together and told them to leave town.
Good.
And we are, we're supposed to be America, the shining city on a hill, but Charleston is known as the holy city, and I see it as the holy city standing on the hill, trying to set an example to the rest of the nation that we want to get along. We do not want racism. We don't want it here. And the 9 that were lost, that was hard. That was hard to take and grasp.
Yeah. There's nothing. I've got nothing to add except to say we're going to have more. You're going to see more of this on both sides. You're going to see more of these kinds of shootings, and they're being done for a number of reasons, not the least of which, and I'll toss this out there, is to exploit the gun control agenda. All right? And they're using Manchurian, seriously, they're using Manchurian candidates or mind-programmed individuals to do this. Just, folks, take a look at the photograph of this perpetrator and the other litany of perpetrators over the last couple of years, and look at the similarity of their mannerisms, of their behavioral traits. Very important.
Well, my parents had a neighbor, his cousin's wife was one of the ones that was slain. And when we first moved here, I'm not going to mention any names for privacy, but that gentleman came, introduced himself to my father, and welcomed him into the neighborhood. And I have a lot of respect for this gentleman. And the powers that be are listening in. You got to remember something. Light outshines the darkness. And Jesus Christ wins in the end. So your time is running short. And you're not going to divide us. We will stand together. But you know what, Doug and Joe? The remnant, Jesus doesn't see color. The remnant will stand together. Whether we're black, yellow, red, or white, we're all going to stand together under the banner of Yahweh Nisi, the Lord my banner. So,
well said.
With that, God bless you all, and let's keep Rick Wiles in prayer, and you. We pray, you know what? I pray every night for all of you that you're covered in the blood, and you and your families are protected with a hedge of protection, because we now see the persecution coming quicker than ever.
Oh, brother. Oh, brother. It's coming. It's here. It's here.
All right, John, I'm going to let you go. Thanks for the info, and God bless and take care.
All right.
God bless you, too. Thanks for the call.
Oh, man, yeah. We need to keep Rick Wiles in our prayers. This won't be the last. The subpoenaing of the documents of the program transcripts, notes, and other programming news reporting items. This will not be the last.
No, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out too. Area code 908. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hi. I called in before. My name is Karen Rogers. I live in New Jersey.
Yes.
And I'm the jockey. And I met you guys in D.C.
I remember.
Okay. So anyway, So I wanted to talk about, it's a little bit off the topic of what tonight's show was, but I was saying that I wrote a book, and I was sexually abused when I was young, and this is what really drove me to succeed was the low self-esteem that I had, because I believed it was my fault. It was my stepfather, and he was actually gay. After hearing Ryan Sorba talking about the gay and the imprinting and all that, I thought about that, and he was gay, but he also, I believe his mother molested him because she was really crazy. But my thought when it happened was that I took him away from my mother, and I really blame myself for that. And of course, I had a spill in Saratoga, I hadn't had a body experience, and wanted to come back and say I was sorry to my mother. So that's how, it affected me. But to get to the what Ryan Sorbo was doing with the imprinting, I don't believe that people are imprinted. I think that what happens is, because I used to go to survivors of incest meetings about 20 years ago, and a lot of the gay men were molested by their cousins and everything, and they thought they were gay. Because they were molested, they believed they were gay. And I think that's what happens is when that happens at a young age, they believe, well, I must be gay. And so anyway, move on from that, it did bother me that he posed as a victim, because when he was talking about what he said, who did you have sex with? Well, you don't have sex with them. They're raping you. It's done to you. It's not an act of two people. The way he was posing and bringing his questions, you could tell that he was not a survivor. Who were you with? I mean, that's not how it is. It's who did it to you. Who did it to you? I get that. And not how old were you. It doesn't matter how old you are. You're still a victim. So that kind of bothered me. But the point, too, that I wanted to bring up is it's really hard. I have a friend who was molested when he was younger than 5. He was pre-verbal. And he is having a really hard time getting therapy. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how can there be no therapy? How can there be no survivors of incest meetings anymore? And I started looking into it, and there's a whole agenda now where they don't want to help people. And I'm wondering if this is because of what Russ Dizdar said with the super soldiers and how they split the personalities. Is this an agenda that they now don't want people to get help because they're using this as a form of programming? I don't know. It's so bizarre. There's no survivor meetings anymore. I went 20 years ago. And the book that I'm writing, it in 1990, Simon & Schuster wanted it, and I think they wanted it because I was writing at the time and doing really well. But I wanted to keep it because I didn't want to give it to a secular. I wanted it to honor God. I wanted it to be what I said. I didn't want it to be, I didn't want to be a sellout and have it just be female jockey, all that stuff. I wanted it to be my real story and it to honor God. But now, all these years later, I'm having a hard time pushing it. It's that's old news, sexual abuse. That's old news. It's nobody wants to touch it. So I was wondering if...
Let me ask you a question. Have you been, pursuant to our conversation, and shortly after we had spoke, I was in contact with a third party. I'm not going to mention who that is right now. I can do it to you privately or mention it to you privately.
Okay.
But were you contacted via email yet?
No, I didn't get anything from you or from anyone.
Okay, because there is some things going on behind the scenes in the works. Let me check on that in the morning.
Because I'd really like this to get out. I know we're into bigger things with the world, and it's really hard to say, well, why is this important with the bigger picture of what's going on in the world? But really, people that have been abused, they're like candidates to bring to the Lord and to save, and because He saved me. And I wanted to honor God. That's why I didn't want the secular press to take it. I knew what they do. They drop the God stuff, and they go, let's talk about, you with the boys in the jocks room or something like that. It's just stupid stuff like that. And I'm like, no, this book is real, and it's honest. So it's been I feel like I homeschooled my son the last 20 years, so that's what I was busy with, and then I got to be a better writer. So now I'm editing it. But at this point, I'm like, is this ever going to get out there? I feel like it's the one thing God set, this is the one mission for me, because I lived through it. I succeeded at writing. I figured it out, which meant a lot of years of just praying and writing and figuring out what happened, because I had a lot of repressed memories. Plus, I became a good writer. So, that's a miracle. And I say, if I don't get this out and I go to heaven and I meet God, He's going to say, why didn't you do the one task I asked you to do? You know, and so I don't want to face God and say I didn't finish it.
And we don't want to face God and say, why'd you drop the ball? You know.
Yes, I feel like it's been so many years, and I just feel like, oof.
No, I understand that. The conversation I had, the dialogue and conversation I had with the third party I'm referring to, they were very, very open and very interested. So hopefully we can, like I said, give me the day tomorrow to contact this individual, this entity, and I'll let you know.
Cool, because I believe it's in God's hands, and God will open the door. I keep saying, shut the door if it's not meant to be, and open the door. And I've been burned a couple times, and I said, it just wasn't meant to be. God isn't. It's not time yet. And but I'm like, time's running out. I feel like if I don't get it done, and it's done pretty much. It just needs to be edited down. You know, it needs some stories taken out. A lot of racing stories need to come out of it. But so anyway, how do I find out or?
Well, I've got your email, your contact information. I've got that.
Okay.
If for any reason, let me let you know. I'll give you a status report via email tomorrow. I just wrote myself a note here because you should have been contacted. The only snafu I think I see right now is with the July 4th holiday. You know, I don't know if.
Right.
This person's in the office.
I know the book world has changed a lot too. Like when in 1990, it was a lot easier there was a lot more books, a lot more bookstores. So that's changed. But I still believe there's blocks here. You know, there's something going on, or maybe it's just not God's timing. But anyway.
Well, yeah, and you know, your story's real. I just have to say this: if you look at what's going on currently, the headlines with respect to the homosexual agenda. You know, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, New York. I'm sorry, I just want to say this.
New York. But this is when people need the most help because it's getting repressed.
Exactly.
They need to know there is help, and it's not normal, and God is there to help you through.
Absolutely.
You know, it shouldn't be made as normal because all these people are going to suffer.
Thank you.
And not only the homosexuals, but you know how many people that I know that were abused. When I say I was, they just come right out and tell me. And it's not homosexuals. It's a lot of people. Anybody with problems. Or a lot of people that succeed in life, they're trying to make themselves okay. Like in my book, there's Karen the Jockey and the Real Me. The Real Me was bad because of what I did, which I didn't really do it. It was done to me. But I succeeded to overcome. It wasn't normal. I don't have that drive today. That drive came out of low self-esteem, and I believe that a lot of people that succeed in life have been sexually abused. That's a
very
because there's a drive there. You do it or die. That was my motto: do it or die. Like you either succeed in this and become something, or you die. You're not worthy of living. And anyway, so. I don't want to keep you any longer. It's a little off topic here, but
good point though. No, good points. Very well taken. And I did want to just mention, I mean, you had mentioned something about, last October, the state of New York actually blessed, if you will, with their high court ruling, legalizing a degree of incest between an uncle and a niece. You know, so these are things that you don't hear about. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Well, when my mom found out, she took me to court. She took me to lawyers and stuff, but I thought I was the criminal. I thought I was going to be convicted and thrown in jail. I was like 16. I was winning races. I was leading rider at Monmouth Park. And the lawyer told her, don't drag her through the mud. She'll just be blamed. It won't work. So meanwhile, I walk away thinking, I'm the criminal. I just got off. It's the twisted way of thinking, and it's all through my book what I was thinking and what reality was. And as well as I did, I never thought I was good. And I'd read the articles on how good I was. I said, I'm really bad. You know, it's no matter what I did until the Lord revealed everything to me. And I ended up with alcohol, bulimia, anorexia, bad relationship. I married a guy that was a leading trainer, but he was a drug addict, and he just brought me so far down. I ended up in mental hospitals. But God was so good and brought me through, and I have a great life now. I was delivered from everything. I homeschooled my son. It's like a new life. I don't even believe that was me. That's what God can do. So
see, that's it. That's what God can do, and that's what you've done through the help of God.
Yep.
That's right.
And success in this world doesn't get it. It doesn't do it. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's all nothing. Like when I had the out-of-body experience, I didn't think about, I want to go back and win more races. I thought, I want to go back and tell my mother that I ruined her life and I'm sorry. And so when I got back, of course, I got right back into my body and into the world and didn't do it for a long time. But that's how we are. We get so distracted from the real important things.
Very well said. We're up against the close of the program. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking my call, and keep up the good work, and don't get overwhelmed. Bye.
That ship sailed.
That's hard.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good night. Tomorrow night, folks, Paul McGuire. Don't miss it. Paul McGuire tomorrow night. Oh, my goodness. Buckle up. Put your seat backs and tray tables in the full upright and locked position. Until tomorrow night, stay safe. God bless.
Have a great night, everyone.